welcome to the Partnership Publishing Podcast. I'm Florence Hanneth, and today we are joined by author Andrew Wheeler. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi Florence, how you doing? It's nice to be
I'm
here.
really well. Yeah, lovely to finally have you on our podcast.
A while.
It has been a while, and I've been really excited to have this conversation with you. For those that are listening and watching, Andy, his debut novel with ourselves under Magic Moon Publishing, Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage, transports readers into an atmospheric mystery, memory, and the unseen world for children. Um, Set in post-war Wales, the
Yep.
story follows two siblings drawn into a village shaped by tragedy and a past that ultimately refuses to rest. And
Feels quite
so,
exciting, actually. Wouldn't mind buying that myself.
thank you very much. It's why we do what we do. Um, it is a very different submission that we received very early on, and we just grabbed it with both hands. It was a page turner. We absolutely loved it. We don't get many submissions for children's of the age range and genre that you'd written for, um, to the point where it's the only one. Maybe for the audience, just share a little bit about yourself. What kind of brought you to the point where Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage kind of became an actual story? What was the writing process like? Just share a little bit of background.
Well, for me, being Welsh, it was quite important really to keep the story grounded in my local area. They always say, write what you know about. And, I'm quite fond of the local area where I live. It's quite rural. And as part of my everyday activities, I go out cycling quite a lot. And there's a particular stretch of road called the Havard Road. And I was going back and forth for years. And there's been this beautiful cottage that's sometimes been run down, but was recently renovated. I pass it every time I go across on my bike. And I'm always searching in my head for new ideas and new stories to come up with, and that involves like a setting that I'm familiar with, or something that I can actually put a place to it, if that makes sense. And this cottage just kept jumping out at me, and I thought, I gotta write a story about this cottage. It looks really good. And every day I went back, I started forming the story in my head. And every day I went back and forth. The story developed a little bit further until I had an idea, a concept about what I wanted to do. It did change quite a lot. Initially, it was going to be involving a bit more of a magical faraway tree vibe, where the kids go off, but they investigate there's a rock over there called, we call it Tom Thumb. It's like a big giant rock, like a landmark, and that was going to become like a magic rock that takes them on
Okay.
on a journey. But because of my love with horror and mystery and supernatural elements, I thought I'll leave that. I'll focus on something a bit more supernatural. And that's how the Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage came about. It's essentially, like I said, it's a real landmark. The cottage itself is not called Brynmoor Cottage. I completely made that up, but the cottage is real. And I just started weaving this story about the 1950s, and a Welsh mining town, a village, I should say, a Welsh mining village, and a disaster that happened many years previous, and how the kids get involved with the mystery, and the supernatural elements that's haunting the village, and how they get involved then to help the dead, I guess, and to free some souls. It's quite interesting. It's quite fun.
It really is. I think what strikes us the most when reading it was, let's involve children in this genre. Like, they absolutely love everything and anything that's a little bit dark. They're ready for it. And I feel that sometimes we are too light, and actually they can take it and they actually love it. And what we get to explore in Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage is that it's the adventure, the mystery. And I think from feedback so far, it's proving it's proving exactly that. It's been well received.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few school visits as well, and the feedback that I've had from the kids that just read the story, they love it. And I think you're right. I mean, from my perspective, from my personal perspective, when I write, I'm an old geezer now, right? I'm a child of the 70s, and things were very, very different back then. And I think there was a lot that we used to be frightened of and be frightened by back then that it doesn't even come into play today. Like, we were like, I remember staying up late to watch the horror films with my mother, when I was a kid. And there was a number of films as well that I used to like when I was younger. Films like, The Amazing Mr. Blunder. I think I mentioned that to you before. And The Watcher in the Woods and things like that, things that perhaps kids are not familiar with today. And I just wanted to try to bring that vibe back into modern storytelling because you are right. There's a lot of fantasy work out there, but I don't see much supernatural work, for children. I really believe that kids need a little scare. Nothing too extreme, don't get me wrong. I'm not out to terrify kids so they can't sleep at night.
Oh,
But at the end of the day, a little scare is good for them, it's good for the soul,
yeah.
because I think when kids start going down that path of being frightened, but there's a relief at the end of it, and know that they're going to be fine, and
Mm,
there was a great ending to the story that didn't affect them, it didn't hurt them. I
mm,
think that's always a good thing,
mm.
and that's the reaction I've had so far. It's been quite wonderful. Even my grandson Charlie, who I guess we'll talk about shortly, who read it, he was my first sort of beta tester, and I mean, he doesn't like anything scary, but he loved it. He was like, wow, this is great. And
Right.
it's just the feedback that I've had has been down, that way, is that the kids are
Mm.
loving it. So it's all good. I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it is, and it's the imagination that kicks in, and I think what's incredible about the young adult early read genre, the first kind of chapter books that they will get. One thing that they also get with Shadows is the illustrations.
Yeah.
So, again, for those that are listening and watching, maybe just share a little bit about how that process of seeing your main characters, Charlie and Susan, kind of come to life and the kind of creative process there.
Well, for me, it was quite important to have illustrations in the book. I think, a picture paints a thousand words, as they say. It's a cliche. But to capture that era and that vibe, I wanted something that took us back there. So we didn't use color. We decided to use black and white illustrations in like a vignette sort of style to capture that period. Um, and I used one of an artist that I've used in the past, Martinez. We talked about it, went through it all. And in all fairness to Martinez, he was really good at capturing the brief and just nailed it out of the gate and just really got everything down. But what was the most important part of it, really, for me? And with everything I write, I try to involve my grandson. My grandson's been quite a massive inspiration to me since he was born. He's 11 now, so I've been writing for 11 years. Um, and everything I've written has got him in somewhere. Like years ago, I wrote a poem about, I did something for the NHS. We raised money when COVID was out. And one of the poems was about him having his hair cut, but it was about him having a dream where his hair was constantly growing. So I involved him in that, and that was part of this book that we did for the NHS. So he's also in the Fairy Bumper as well. I forgot to mention he's also in the Fairy Bumper as well, which is quite cool. And what's nice as well about it is that each artist that has drawn him has caught him at different ages
Oh,
through
wow.
his life.
Yeah.
And obviously from a different artist's perspective as well. So it's been really interesting because I've got a couple of books now with him at a very young age, like a medium age. And now he's at that age now again. He's like
Brilliant. Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to look back on and keep that. But anyway, the point I was making was I've got him involved again with this particular book.
Mhm.
I based the character of Charlie around him. My grandson is quite enthusiastic about things. He's quite interested, but there's a little bit he's a little bit cautious as well, and I quite like that trait
Yeah.
that I put into Charlie in the book. Um, on the cover, the cover was quite an important. thing for me to capture the vibe of
Yeah.
the story with that ghostly supernatural feeling, but also with a degree of adventure as well. And I think when you see the cover, you'll see that there's a little bit of
Action.
adventure going on,
Yeah.
between the two children
Mm.
on the cover and
Mm.
everything that's going on around them.
Yeah.
And I use Charlie as an inspiration, obviously, for the image of Charlie in the book.
Mm.
We took a number of his photographs of him, and then we sketched him out and then developed it further. But with Susan, it was a little bit different in that how she came around was I sent the manuscript off to a few friends
Mm.
for just a beta test, really, just to get some feedback on the story. And one of the girls who read it, Frankie, which is a daughter of a friend of mine from Cardiff, she sent me a lovely video saying, "I've read the story, I love it, I think it's amazing, blah, blah, blah." And I thought, that's really sweet. And I just thought, well, she'd make a good Susan, actually.
Yeah.
So they sent us photographs of her, and then we sketched her out. And as a gesture to thank her for the video, I put her on the cover. So she's actually the character. And what was really, really sweet as well is when the book was launched, she took the book to school and dressed up as her character for World Book Day, which was
Yeah.
great. So she was in class dressed as the
Oh,
character
Susan.
or on the cover of the book.
I mean, that's every author's dream, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, it's
For
fantastic.
World Book Day, having
Yeah,
children dress up as a character out of your books, and to have that, it really is magic. And I think again, you are drawing from so much of real life.
yeah,
Like again, I think that's what really helps when reading the story. Like you just feel that it is so real, because you've drawn on that, for the main characters, for the adventure, for the location, for the setting. Um, the cover is incredible, and as a series goes, and that's a little hint there, but as the series goes, it is very, very strong. Your story opens with a sense of unease rather than action.
yeah.
Um, do you enjoy building that tension and like really kind of really deep diving into the atmosphere and the feeling, the description of location and what the characters are feeling, particularly for young readers?
Oh, 100%, definitely. I love creating that vibe because I think, let's be honest, we're all scared of the dark when we're young, right? And we're always wondering what's in the corner in the shadows. And to build up that tension,
Mm.
um, I had to sort of go back a little bit to when I was a child and just cast my mind back to when I was young and what used to scare me, being that age. And it
Yeah.
was always what's in the corner of, of the room.
Yeah. Yeah, that takes you back. You
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah, it does. It does. And I just think when you're writing a story and you're creating that tension, sometimes the what if
Mm.
or the what's there is actually more frightening, a little
Yeah.
bit more scarier than actually, the visualization of it, I should say. So it's all about building that tension, but then there has to be a little bit of a visual impact as well. And I
Mm.
think, that's the way that I write. I try to write cinematically as well, which is quite interesting. I got a cinematic brain, I can't help it.
Yeah.
It's just being a lifelong film fan, I guess.
No,
So
and that definitely, sorry to interrupt, that definitely came through when reading your work. You read it and you feel that you can see it. You feel that you have genuinely written it as if it's been acted already. It is incredibly visual. So I think that also helps for the age range as well, and for the genre of book that it is, to create that visualization. And again, it goes back to the imagination, doesn't it? Just
course it does. Of
yeah.
course it does. The imagination is key. I always remember when I was, I think about 11, myself, and I think Jaws came out.
Oh,
And you remember the film Jaws, and one of the biggest thing about Jaws was that the shark wasn't revealed,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and how
Tension.
Spielberg built that tension through the film. It's my favorite film, still is today. But it's all about that building of tension. You don't have to give too much away, from a visual standpoint, but as long as you create that
Mhm.
that tension inside the head and let it build and let it develop.
Yeah.
It's always good to get the hair standing on your arms, isn't it?
Yeah, the goosebump moment is always a key that we always say that in the office actually. When we get that goosebump moment, it's kind of you're onto something good as well. Um, what I also wanted to talk about and ask you was Charlie and Susan, your main characters. As you've already mentioned, you're drawing on kind of real life to build these characters. They do respond differently to the fear element. And I think that's good. How intentional was that to kind of have that dynamic and I guess enabling the reader to connect and have that relatability, depending on who they're following and who they're reading at the time. Um, how intentional was that?
Well, intentional. I think because Susan's a little bit older than Charlie in the book, and I think she wants to be a natural leader. But even she's a little bit cautious as well with things, you know.
Yeah.
And then Charlie comes through and he's full of beans initially, you know, he's full of let's get up and go. But then it's like, oh, hang on. Let's wait a second. So I just wanted that balance between the two, you know, so that they can almost sort of bounce off each other, you
Yeah,
know, whereas one can take the lead one way and then perhaps the other
yeah,
can take the lead another way, you know.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was quite important. So that there's that sibling rivalry, you know,
yeah.
uh, one-upmanship perhaps a little bit, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite natural that I think, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I like the banter, you know, between the two of them. I like the fact that she's quite proper as well, which is quite nice. And he's just full of it, you know. He just wants to crack on, but then as soon as he sees like a dark corridor, he's kind of like, "Oh, I'm not sure
Oh,
I'm gonna go down there now." So
yeah.
it's just fun writing that kind of thing, you know. And I that's just the way my head works.
No, no, it is. And I think it was quite refreshing to see because sometimes we read and you've got that strong lead and there's not really any every other character is secondary, but what you've kind of built here is that like duo that really like that
Yeah,
strong relationship. And again, it just goes to the you kind of touched on how long you'd been writing this series and how it had developed over time. I think that also goes to show, that development process has been really key here because you've been able to really refine and really understand the relationships, really understand the characters that you've built. I think sometimes we don't, as publishers, talk about maybe with authors enough about how really putting in that work, that depth is yeah, you can't beat that. You need that depth for it to be a really thoroughly enjoyable read. And yeah, I think that you've really naturally given the time, but you have intentionally developed and really refined the characters.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think as I know we touched upon a series just now.
Yeah.
But obviously, as that series progresses, the dynamic between the children changes a little bit, which I think is always healthy, you know, especially as they're growing up a little bit and becoming more used to the ghostly settings, I guess, you know, and the scenario and the world they've been put into. So it's quite interesting, really, how their their vibe sort of develops, you know, as thing goes on. But for this particular one, first off the bat, I think I captured what I wanted to capture, you know, between the two. I mean, it's slightly difficult for me. I was always a single child. I didn't have a brother or sister, so um, I kind of wrote it probably subconsciously, I guess, on the basis that if I did have a sister, this is how I would like the
Yeah,
relationship to be. Do
yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
No, I really
So,
do. And you've been able to allow yourself to really deep dive in that and
mm,
and properly, authentically create the characters, the role, the kind of what they would be feeling and thinking, even if they're not saying it in the story. You really do know what they're all doing. And I think that's, yeah, a credit to the writing process. You can tell that you really enjoy the writing process. I think sometimes the the element of illustration or bringing something to life can overshadow the actual writing process and journey,
Yeah.
because there's been so much dedication and commitment inputted pre the book coming in book form. And I think yeah, let's just kind of give a moment for the actual writing process, because yeah, you
Yeah.
really have defined the characters here.
Well, I think as well when talking about the illustrations area as well, I mean the book is illustrated, but it's not crammed full of illustrations. I think I just wanted to choose a few selected scenes really that we could add a little bit of depth to it, you know.
Yeah.
Without going overboard. And I think, you know, what we just said about the writing process, that's quite important. The visual aspect is equally as important, but it's not overly worked within the story. So the imagination, you know, is still comes into play, you know,
Yeah.
quite a lot, you know.
Yeah. Your words do the talking. We allow them that
Yeah,
space to
yeah,
really capture
exactly.
the imagination. And
Yeah,
I think, yeah, for children, that change from picture book age to chapter books, you need that subtlety. You still want some illustrations, for that readability as well,
right,
and
yeah,
they work
exactly.
so well. For schools and educators, parents, anyone listening, I do feel that shadows can help and create really good discussion within a classroom environment or within an educational setting. Um, Not least through history,
Yep.
um, empathy, but then also that kind of classic storytelling in the classroom. Um, how do you see shadows kind of being an aid? You've already mentioned you've done a couple of school visits now as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how do you see shadows kind of fitting in that space?
I've enjoyed the school visits that I've done, and it's been really interesting, actually. I think one of the things that I wanted to achieve from the visits was to talk about history. I think history is quite a valuable part of the school curriculum, and everybody should really know the history of where they're from and what's going on in their area. I think it's lost a little bit today on kids with all the modern tech that they've got. I think, you know, it's all about YouTube today, quick fixes, blah, blah, blah. And I just, when I went into the schools to chat to them, the biggest part of the conversation was about the history side of it. Now things have changed, you know, for children during that time from the 1950s to now, you know, and obviously before the 50s, because obviously the mining disaster happened earlier than the 1950s
Yeah.
in the story. Um, so that's quite an important part. But I think, you know, what I felt and the feedback that I've had is that I think when children read it, they can understand a degree of courage. There's courage involved, you know, and how confronting fears as well can obviously be a good thing. Because, like I said earlier, I think kids are only a little scared in their lives. And, you know, I think that's quite an important part, really, of becoming a person and knowing what your limits are and overcoming them. And I think the story does focus on that a little bit as well, in that, you know, it's not every day based on the story that a kid would be brave enough to go down a mine, you know, on the whim of a ghost, you know,
Yeah.
ghost instructions, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, that took a little bit of bravery from Charlie, you know, to be able to do that. So I think there's definitely some aspects there of bravery and history and confronting your fears and overcoming them, which I think is quite an important part of growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited for us to explore and make sure that this can Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage and the ongoing series can really help within an educational setting. I think it's a great book series and the starting book to really encourage that conversation. I think, like you're saying, a lot is YouTube quick fixes, kind of from an interactive perspective. But this book is really quite interactive in the sense that it does have illustrations. It is a good key, an entrance into that historical kind of and history conversation. Um, yeah, it's gonna be very exciting to see how we can keep moving this. So I guess just before we do wrap up on our conversation, all surrounding Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage, is there anything that when you were writing the story that you really wanted to see for the book and for the series, or what you'd like to kind of share with the reader? What's the kind of main thing that you would like them to get out of the book?
Well, from a kid's perspective, I just wanted to take them back to, I guess it's just kind of weird, but my childhood, and the things that I used to be a little bit sort of scared of, but what used to rock my world, And I think, the writing with that supernatural element for me is quite an important part of it. The fact that it ties into history is quite an important part of it. And I think between the pieces in the story, I think kids are going to get a lot out of it because I think it's quite exciting, obviously. I think the feedback that I've had is come across as exciting. But I think overall, it's just trying to capture perhaps a moment in time that doesn't exist anymore. Um, and it perhaps helps kids navigate what's gone on whilst confronting their own
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite
Yeah.
a difficult one to explain because I did I don't want to cross that path of writing something that isn't relevant, but I
Mm.
think a little bit of a supernatural fear and excitement is always relevant to a child,
Yeah.
um, whichever way it's constructed in a story. But the fact that I've written mine from a history perspective, I think as something solid to give the reader as well.
Very much so. No, and you've captured it immensely, with depth, the imagination, and I've been relating this as a children's book, but it is a fantastic read for adults too, and we've had
All
that
right.
feedback so far as well. So, um, what I would like to say to anyone listening and watching, please do get in touch. Andy is available for interviews, book signings, workshops, and talks to be able to deliver Shadows of Brynmoor Cottage. The book is available in all good bookshops now. Um, if we are wanting to connect with you, Andy, how do we do that?
You can reach me through my website, or through my Facebook pages. I've got Facebook, website, and Instagram. And it's andywheelerauthor.com. It's quite simple, really. Everything is on there. The books, a little bit about me, my history, and how they can contact me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for this really insightful conversation. We can't wait to have you back. We've got lots more to discuss and share with everybody. So thank you for today, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much. Catch up soon. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.